What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Tactical Chinwag podcast. I'm your host, Luke Jillings, aka Original Human on YouTube, and today I am joined by the amazing best-selling author and owner of a Green Beret. I have to get that one in there. Ollie Ollerton, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing good, mate, and thank you for having me on the on your podcast.
Hey, no worries. It's an absolute honor to have you on. Your influence, I think, for the military with SAS Who Dares Wins and your books has probably made a lot of young lads want to join the Royal Marines. My guess.
No, absolutely. Well, listen, I think the way I take the exposure off SAS Who Dares Wins is I feel that far gone are the days for me to be stroking my ego. It's really about we've been given an opportunity, we've been given a voice, and it's about what you do with that voice. And that is for me, you know what, you're gonna like this. IED.
Okay.
Inspire, educate, and demonstrate.
What is it with the military and acronyms? Like every time we got to get an acronym in there, aren't we?
No, mate. Well, I actually came up with that inspire, educate, and demonstrate. And then I went, that's IED. And I'm like, I just can't help myself.
Yeah, no, you got to. And then before you know it, you'll have it on a blue spreadsheet, on a blue PowerPoint with yellow writing, like at CTC when you fallen asleep. The typical colors that they have for all of the PowerPoints that they have there, and all the acronyms that you have to
Yeah.
remember. Jeez.
That's it, right.
So for anyone who is unaware,
Yeah.
you're a former Royal Marine. You went
Yeah.
into the Special Boat Service, which is just outstanding. You
Yeah.
spent 6 years. Am I correct by saying that in the Special Boat Service?
5 years Royal Marine, 6 years Special Boat
Okay.
Service. Yeah.
And now you're
Uh,
doing. You've done TV shows like SAS Who Dares Wins. You've got two incredible books out.
yeah.
Um, Mate, you're all over the place. You're all over the
Yeah.
place.
I am, mate. I am. And it's, yeah, I mean, just I've got my first fiction coming out as well in November.
I was about to mention that.
Yeah.
It's called Scar Tissue, right?
Scar tissue, mate. Yeah. Really excited about that. I've just been having the launch meeting on that today. So although it's a fiction book, it really, it's a framework of my experiences in Iraq as a contractor.
Yeah.
So it's sort of post-military, and there's a lot of stuff in there. I like to look at it as a true story that's been elaborated on, as opposed to something that's totally fiction. So there's a lot of stuff in there that's obviously been elaborated a great deal, but it comes from the things the character Alex Abbott goes through, who is the guy that's the main character. Is a lot of the stuff that it goes in detail what he's going through mentally and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really powerful book. I'm really excited.
Yeah. I'm very excited. It's literally the first on my list right here of things to ask you. Is because, as you can see behind me, I read a lot of fiction. I'm a big fan of fiction, of escapism. I think I got it from the Royal Marines, having that little bit of a escapism when it's needed. And I went on Amazon because I've got your books, and I went on Amazon thinking, I wonder if he's doing anything more. And I saw it, and I'm like, wait, this is fiction. What made you want to do fiction?
Mate, a lot of it comes from well, listen, I mean, it was something that was suggested to me, and initially I thought, no, because I'm so sort of passionate about the self-development books, that I wanted to have like a long history of self-development books, but they said, look, you can do exactly the same. I mean, you can parallel the two. So and mate, you know what, as royals are like, we like a good dip.
Yeah, we do love a
We,
good
we
yeah.
we can spin a good bit. So and once the sort of initially I was a bit apprehensive, but when I met the team and then we started talking, before you know it, they were hanging on every word of all these ideas I had and all these creative ideas, and they were like, "That this could be really really great." So we went for it, and the more I got into it, and the more involved, the more immersed in that whole sort of more fiction side, I got lost in that world, because I am extremely creative anyway. That's why I've got so many flipping businesses and stuff like that. Because my team have actually said to me, "No more ideas, please, for the next 6 months." And I'm like,
Yeah.
I just can't help myself when it comes. I don't plan it. It just like I'm like, let's do this. You know, it's like crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm just creative, so I enjoy that creative sort of um, creative edge that it
Yeah.
brings out.
That's funny that you said that because the Royal Marines and creativeness don't really seem very hand in hand, but there's a lot of royals and former royals that are genuinely very creative. Like on Instagram, I've seen one former royal who's now an artist and he's doing a bunch of different artwork. Another lad's doing all different equipment for like airsoft and ranges and
We've got a
surprise.
magician.
Yeah, magician. Yeah, exactly. I'm doing videos on YouTube. There's a lot of creativity in a place where you wouldn't expect it.
I think that's because we had to be highly creative because the MOD had no money. So
That's also very true. That's
we had to
also
make the most of it. We had to polish the turd
yeah,
time and
yeah.
time again.
Yeah, and you can tell actually that creativeness when you go on an exercise and training and all the different ways that they get you to be in pain. That's the
Yeah.
creativeness being shined right there.
Oh, exactly. And you know the lengths the lads will go to get out on the lash. You know, and you know, so I can speak from experience on that one.
Yeah. So what's so I want to go back to your transition between. In fact, let's go before the transition of Royal Marines to the SBS. Let's go before
Yeah.
that and let's talk about prior to the Royal Marines because you've got a fascinating story, mate. An absolute fascinating story, especially the whole circus ordeal when you was a child and
Yeah.
I don't know how much you like talking about that, but my god, like what a crazy situation.
Yeah, that was a mad situation, and I think that's why again, mate, I like going into the fiction side of things because my actual when I tell the story of my life, it sounds more like a fiction book than it does the truth.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean that was for me, and I talk about that a lot. And I mean, there's probably people that heard the story more than once that say, "Oh, he's never going on. He never starts talking about the monkey," and I'm like. It wasn't always like that because you know when you go through especially childhood trauma you lock away the intimate we're wired to lock away that intimate trauma.
Yeah.
You know it's a natural defense system to try and lock it away, and that happens with everyone. You know that's why you have problems with PTSD and all sorts, because initially you can't deal with it initially because your body wants to just close it down and wrap it up in cotton wool, try and forget the intimate trauma and move on.
Mm.
And for me, that's exactly what I did as a 10-year-old kid. I mean, I went to the circus with my brother and his mate, and as they were setting up, and I got separated and ended up seeing a little baby chimp on the floor. And this is a very short version. Seeing a baby chimp on the floor, and I was absolutely compelled because I was in love with Tarzan, so that was Cheetah. And you know, for me, that was almost, you know, and this is in Staffordshire in the UK, the middle of the UK, and I'm like, you know, that to me was Hollywood,
Mm.
sat right there. So I was, you know, and it was like I was compelled. And then before I know it, I'm engaging with this little baby chimp, and then his mum, who was, you know, in the shadows behind, having a nap, obviously woke up to see me above her baby, and you know, just came on a beeline to kill me.
Sheesh.
Um, so next thing, I've got this chimp on, you know, it pinned me to the floor, and was just going absolutely. It was a hysterical, you know, it was going mental, just trying to absolutely make sure the last thing it did was make sure I stopped breathing to
Yeah.
protect its own. And you know, it was beating on down on me like a drummer in a rock band, and knocking the hell out of me. And I thought I was going to die. You know, I absolutely thought I was going to die, and it was, you know, all instinctive. I didn't get a chance to sit there going, "Oh, I'm going to die now,"
Right.
but you know, it was like I knew I had to do something. I did something. It was fight or flight. Um, and I managed to dislodge the chimp, get my knee up to my chest, managed to um, kick it off me, and then I managed to get a few feet away, and then it came on a final attack, and it got caught by its chain, and I'm stood there, you know, covered in blood. My arm was absolutely looked like it looked like a dog had been chewing on it for an afternoon. You know, it was a real mess,
Yeah.
and but it wasn't the physical scars that really had the effect. It was the mental scars, but I didn't see that the effect that had until a long, long time later. but that was a very, I've only had chance recently to unravel all that.
Right.
And But that really was, when I look at it like this, right, I don't regret that at all, because um, it made me who I am today. Not just that, but it set me off on a different course. But that was my first breakpoint. I've got a company called Breakpoint. My book is called Breakpoint. And Breakpoint for me, if you imagine under that chimp, I could have laid there and died. And a lot of people, I'm not saying they would. Some, it's just way people are. Some people would have laid there, died, just gone in total defense and died. But for me, I had to take it to the next level. I had to step into an area of severe discomfort for any chance of living that day, and that
Yeah.
is what Breakpoint is all about. It's short-term discomfort for long-term gain.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean you have to go and get attacked by chimps, but don't go to the circus and
yeah. Yeah.
come on, bring it on. But for me, that is like that transfers into everyone's everyday life. We are naturally wired to avoid any kind of stress, any kind of discomfort, and take the easy road. It's just the way we're wired. And when it comes to achieving our goals, when it comes to making changes, that could be. Let me use an example of the physical, because everyone tries at some point in their life to get fitter, to lose weight, or whatever it is. It's that moment when you decide to take the short-term discomfort and go through the short-term pain until you create a new habit loop that becomes your new modus operandi. And that really what Breakpoint's all about, and it's simple stuff. Like, if you can take care of the simple stuff with Breakpoint, it sounds quite severe, but that's like your washing, doing your washing up before you go to bed at night, so you don't come down to a mess in the morning. It's making your bed in the morning. It's sending the extra email. It's just doing those extra. And if you can take care of the small stuff, the big stuff falls into place.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I use that as that was my first Breakpoint. It certainly wasn't my last, but that's really where it all stems from.
Yeah. And how old was you? I think, if I can remember in the book, 10.
10 years old. Yeah,
wow. Yeah.
I was a baby. But and it was severe. I know it was severe because I can't remember much of my childhood at all pre 10 years old.
Yeah.
I had some pretty bad trauma, and it did set me off on a path of destruction. I mean, a lot of people join the military in general for a number of reasons. A lot of people join because they're running away from something, and a lot of people like me join with issues. And I had issues that again, they weren't apparent. Like I say, I only managed to unlock a lot of that deep set trauma actually a year ago in December last year, when I went away to Costa Rica and went to an ayahuasca retreat.
Wow. Yeah, I need to know more about that, because I've heard a lot about that stuff. So a lot of people, before we get into that, because that's a whole nother story, I bet. Before we get into that, like, when you mentioned that you kicked this chimpanzee off you, right? Your 10-year-old, right? This chimpanzee must have been roughly about the same weight as you, right? Or if not bigger.
Bigger.
Bigger, yeah. So in that moment, you did something that, it's the thing that a lot of royals, a lot of military members, paras, royals, special forces, doesn't matter who you are, kind of have an understanding that it's like it's fight or flight. You've got to do something. You got to do something in that moment, otherwise you're done for. Do you think? So a lot of people ask me this all the time about joining the military, getting a Green Beret. It's like, well, you're just that type of person. You're just able to. And I have this ethos that it's not. That's not the case. You have to really train yourself, just like a muscle, when it comes to your resilience, your determination, and all that lot. Do you think that one little push that you did was the spark that pushed you in the direction of the military? Do you think it was the first thing that made you go, okay, I can push myself further than I think? And then, I mean, you're only young, but do you think it was that spark?
I'll tell you exactly what it was, mate. It was the fact that I make decisions like that now. And that was that, underneath that chimp, I didn't have time to allow my brain to sabotage a solution.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the longer we sit there procrastinate, it's like a lot of people that join the military, They sit there, they think about it too long. You know what I mean?
Mm,
They sit there, and before they know it, the mind's told them every reason why they can't do it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And whereas a lot of the people that, pretty much everyone that's actually gone for it, like join the military, it's because they can make a decision like that. It's like, I'm joining the Royal Marines. They don't give the brain long enough to talk them out of it.
Yeah.
And it's about people that can make decisions, um, very, very quickly, very instinctively, without allowing the program to take over. It's people that can follow their heart and switch off the program that's in their head.
Yeah.
And I feel that's what that experience gave me. And still to this day, I don't procrastinate. I know that decisions have to be made within 5 seconds. Otherwise, we're wired that way again. I've looked a lot into the way we're wired. I've looked into evolution, and the way the long. If you leave it any more than 5 seconds, your mind will start to talk you out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really, the simple when you look at evolution. I won't go too deep into this, but when you look at evolution, right? Evolution only cares about um, the species. Okay, the species continuing,
Yeah.
um, and really, what's happening there is our mindset is one that we keep doing what we've done. We're in a habit loop. So we keep doing the things we did yesterday and the day before and the day before that, because in our minds, regardless of the situation, our minds know that that's kept us alive until today. It doesn't really give a shit whether it was a good experience, a bad experience, it's happy or sad. It just knows if it keeps doing what it did yesterday and the day before, it's going to stay alive. So as soon as anyone goes to change that, do something different, do something new, and people can relate to this, going back to the fitness thing, once you go to doing something new, your brain will sabotage that if you give it long enough.
Yeah. And I think that's the classic confidence test, right? The
You're
classic
there, mate.
confidence test in the water, in the Royal Marines training,
The
and
illusion.
yeah, the illusion. And again, even though a
Yeah.
lot of people don't really think they have it, and that it's like something that random
So
people have who join.
we've gone a bit weird.
Am I good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's okay now.
Is that better? Yeah, so I was saying how, like, with the determination, not the determination, so the confidence test in the Royal Marines, you stood on the end of a plank at the pool, and you have to fall in backwards. You just have to stay, and the longer people stand there thinking about it, and it happens, the worse it
Yeah.
gets. They start crouching a bit. They start trying to put one leg down, and I think that even that itself, even though for a lot of people it is ingrained in, is also trainable. It's also trainable to be like, just don't think about it, just do it. Just don't think about it, just do it. And it's definitely difficult, especially for someone who's never had to do it before.
Yeah.
Especially before I joined the Royal Marines and I was training, I was not the type of person that would just head on into something. I was always sat there thinking about it. What do I
Mm.
do? How do I do it? And I think telling myself that I'm strategizing was actually me giving myself an excuse to actually just think about it and not do it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because hesitation sends a warning to your mind. That's what it does. As soon as you hesitate, it sends a warning that what you're about to do needs more consideration. That's what goes on. And then we get further enforced that we shouldn't do it.
yeah, yeah,
It's just the way we work, and that's why, I mean, there's a very to really, I mean, that's the whole thing with breakpoint. It's about making that decision in a split second and not allowing your mind to sabotage something. Especially if it's in line with a goal. It's about taking action regardless of what's in front of you, and not allowing your mind to sabotage that progression towards a goal.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's this key. It's one of the most important aspects when it comes to resilience. It's just doing something, just doing it. That
Yeah.
being on that starting line of the endurance course, ready to go on your commando tests, and you're getting
Yeah.
closer and closer. It's more difficult to just go because you're in line, but your brain switches.
Mm.
You got to switch your brain off, and then as soon as it's like 3, 2, 1, go, you just
Yeah.
gotta do it. You gotta put one foot first. Take that one step, and before you know it, you've done 30 miles and got your green beret. You know what I mean? Like one step at a time. That's all it is.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. And another thing that the military, and I'll big shout out to Royals, because I've obviously been a part of that for a good part of my life, is the fact that we follow process. regardless of what's going on up here, we follow process and that gets stuff done. And that's why we're so good. That's why operations go so well, especially when things go wrong. We have a process in place that is void of what's going on in between you in your head.
Yeah.
If you just allowed everyone just to do what they wanted, what they were thinking when things got really tough, everyone would be all over the place. But everyone knows that you've got to get from there to an emergency rendezvous point, and from there regroup and then get to the helicopter. It's like you follow a process that's just an example, but you follow a process that is
Mhm.
void of mental sabotage.
Yeah, and it's trust in the process as well. Trust in the process that you know that it's a good process and the right people have thought it through and decided this is what we're gonna do. Um, so before we move on from there, I want to talk a little bit more about the military, but your transition between the Royal Marines and the Special Forces, and how do you think
This internet is really starting to annoy me.
yeah, it's starting to freeze a little bit. It's starting to freeze a little bit. I can still hear you every now and again. I don't know if you can still hear me. Okay, sorry about that. Internet went out a little bit there, but we're all good. So I wanted to quickly chat about your transition between the Royal Marines and the Special Forces, and a lot of people, obviously, the Special Forces has this huge stigma around it of like nobody knows what's going on and stuff like that. And even in the Royal Marines, no one really knows much about the process. And I'm not going to dig because I know you can't really talk much about it. Um, but what made you think, you know what, I'm going to go Special Force? What made you think I'm going to go in that direction from the Royal Marines?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, when I went to the careers office before I joined the Royal Marines, there was a Royal Navy chick there, Royal Navy lady there, and there was a Royal Navy lady there, and she was like, "Well, so what do you do if you do get into the Royal Marines? What do you want to do?" And we'd all got the brochures, you know what I mean? It was like I saw like a picture of a mini sub and like a combat frogman, and I went, "I want to do that." And she just looked at me and she laughed and she went, "Everyone wants to do that."
Yeah.
She closed the book, and that for me, I mean, I've always dealt with doubt that way. If someone doubts me, it gives me every more incentive to go and do it.
Mm,
Now, what had happened? That seed had kind of got sown, but I then joined the Royal Marines, not with the intention of going Special Forces. I joined the Royal Marines, and it just wasn't enough for me. You know what I mean? It was almost like it wasn't, everything I thought it would. My perception and reality are massively different,
yeah.
and the perception for me wasn't great. And to be honest, I can't because of that. I lost a fair bit of interest. Um, and then I was starting to be a bit of a rebel. Starting to be, I always am a bit, non-conformist anyway. And then I started to get, I think it knocked my confidence a fair bit. I went to Northern Ireland, went to Iraq, and it knocked my confidence a fair bit because of a couple of incidents. And at that point, I came back from Iraq, and I thought, I've had enough of this. I'm leaving. Um, but by that time, I kind of left 4-5 Commando. I was down at Poole, um, and that was it. I was like, general duties down there. I thought, no, I'm just going outside. I put my notices in to leave, and I was 6 months out from my 18 months notice. So 6 months to go,
Mm.
23 years old. And I went to see my brother pass out. He passed out as a Royal Navy pilot,
Oh, okay.
and went to his pass out at Dartmouth. And I was down there. I bumped into my troop commander from from Iraq and from Ireland from 4-5 Commando, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "I said, well, mate, I said I'm leaving. I'm going outside."
Yeah.
And you know what? I actually thought my boss from 4-5 just didn't value me whatsoever. And this was obviously what was going on in my head.
Right.
I kind of thought, I didn't have much self worth. My confidence had been knocked. And Yeah, I just said I'm leaving. And he said, "You know what?" He says, "I always thought you had something different. I don't know what it is, but I just feel that you could. You're the kind of person that would pass Special Forces selection."
Yeah.
And I went, "Really?" And he went, "Yeah." He says, "I tell you what, if you don't give that a go," he said, "you'll regret that for the rest of your life." Because he knew that I'd mentioned it at some point.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for those words of someone that I respected and I thought actually had a negative view on me, to hear those words from him was like so impactful.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was that one thing. You know, after that, I went back to camp on the Monday, and I was actually on I was on guard duties on Pool Camp. You know, where the SBS are based.
Yeah.
And I went in to see my troop stripey, and I said I want to put in my chit. He said, "What for?" He says, "You're leaving soon." He said, "Well," I said, "I want to take my chit out for leaving, and I want to put in for selection." And honestly, he sat there and he just laughed for about 5 minutes. He laughed at me and laughed at me and laughed at me, which again for me was like the power to go, right, I'm going to show you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I never saw him again.
There you go.
And he's like that, you know. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Well, it was more than that. I'll see you in a couple of months. And from that moment, I was like, bang onto my training, bang onto, you know. I was like, I didn't have long to prepare for selection, and then jumped on selection. I still had that doubt, lack of confidence. It was only those words that echoed in my head from my officer saying, you know, you have what it takes. And, you know, with that, again, the goal was massive. You know, seeing myself in the SBS, you know, as a 23-year-old, I look back now, I was a scrawny little kid. And
Yeah.
to see myself as an SBS operator, that to me still didn't compute. You know, I fought with that. But what I did know is that if I broke that down to bite-sized chunks, that I had a much better chance of you know, negotiating each part of that. So the first sort of day on, you know, the first test was up the Penny Van, which is a very, you know, it's like 24 Ks in 4 hours with pack and weapon. You know, it's extremely tough. And all these people, I looked around, you know, in the morning when I got there, I was like, oh, God, you have got off the wrong bus. You need to go home. And I looked around me and I was like looking at all these super soldiers. They were a lot bigger than me, a lot older, more experienced. They had all the gear, they had tattoos, you know, and I was like, wow, they look like proper like special forces already.
Mm.
And these were the people I was flying past, you know, on the Penny Fan. And I was like, wow. And, you know, some people stopping and giving up. And these are the people I was looking at. And it was, you know, that for me built my confidence so much. It was like, wow. And every step was like an increase in my confidence. Yeah. And once I'd done the Penny Fan and I was in the top 5 on that day, you know, I was like, wow, you know, I was like, maybe I've got something here. And, you know, each milestone just gave me that more confidence. So
that's incredible.
You know, initially it wasn't the fact, you know, I did one thing I've always done, Luke, and that is I fell in love with the end result of, you know, I've dreamed about, you know, I've visualized about being at the end. You know, and I've visualized about how it will affect my life, the people around me. You know, I've really, and that's the creative side of me, I suppose. You know, it's like really getting lost in that detail of the visualization of where I want to be. So, you know, it was that dream. But when times get really tough, you have to really break it down into sort of 1 meter square. You know, you have to break it down to 1 meter square and just really focus on your immediate environment and just keep on moving.
Yeah. Well, that's an incredible story. I think it goes into the whole self-doubting and you more than you think that you are. You know, I think that's a huge part of your books. I know, like you are more than you think you are. And obviously you've got that straight from that experience. And I think I've been through the same thing as well, where you self-doubt all the time. That's another thing that's kind of just hardwired into us, is always thinking that you can't do something. And I remember going to CTC, the Commando Training Center, and looking again. I was 16. I was tiny. And I remember seeing these lads around me who were massive lads, like huge. They could do like 15 pull-ups in one go and all this amazing stuff. But then when it came to yomping, when it came to like the speed marches, I just put my head down and you just crack on and whatever it is, it's a case of just, again, going full back circle to what we were saying before. It's just not thinking about something too much and just kind of going with it and just being like, I'm just going to get it done. Yeah. You know, there's a reason we're doing this. There's a reason why this is implemented in our training, why it's a test. And if I can do this, which they think I can because I'm at this point in training, then I believe in it and I can do it. And a lot of people throughout training as well have self-doubt, and when you get to a test, like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And it happened to me on a few occasions, but for the most part, that test is there because the training team and the people who make the whole 32 weeks and put it together have a reason for it to be there and know that if you are at that point in that week whatever,
Yeah.
23, you can do that test, and that's why we implement it. And I think
Yeah.
that example of not thinking that you can do something and end up being in the top 5 and getting in special forces is the best example there possibly can
Yeah.
be when it
Yeah.
comes to that. Amazing.
No, absolutely. But
So
it's just about it's about having a vision, and then belief is a massive thing, isn't it? You have to have belief, and if if the big picture looks too overwhelming, you've got to break it down.
yeah. Yeah, and do you think that do you see a lot of that when you were going outside and you was doing contract work and stuff like that? Because I'm sure when you're doing contract work, you're not just with former Special Forces, former Royal Marines, but you probably got a few paras in there. You probably got a few Navy lads in there. I know a few lads from the Navy who went and did that as well, especially the maritime security. Do you see that kind of stem in different ways from different branches, or do you specifically see that same thing just across the board with military lads in general?
No, I mean, talking about working with people, I mean, initially when we moved into sort of the early days of Iraq as a contractor, I mean, it was, I had the beauty of working with ex SBS lads and ex Royal Marines, and there was another lad that was a para. But then, honestly, I mean, it was one of the reasons that I ended up leaving, really. But because of the way the contracts were going, there's so much money to be made. There was people out there like bouncers who'd never been in the military, but bouncers from the clubs in London, ended
Yeah,
up, with an AK-47 tottering down the street. So, but yeah, I mean, I think in general, that's pretty much across all services. It's just the way we're wired. I still see my company at the moment is great because I actually work with all this we've got pretty much all bootnecks in there, all Royal Marines, former Royal Marines, and one of the lads is one of the guys I joined up with. I met him on the train on the way to CTC. But even some of them, they're still wired that way, and I have to try and get it out of them. You know what I mean? About the self doubt and the negative messaging that's going on in their head. And people think it's just words, but when you're telling yourself you're no good, when you're telling yourself it would happen to me, when you're telling yourself, oh, I have the worst luck, they are really strong mental messages that really do start to dictate your destiny.
yeah,
And people don't understand the power of what they're doing, and that is, they've got to learn, the messaging is if you if you can't believe in yourself, you're never going to achieve anything. If you can't, I mean, I can go into depth on this one. I mean, when I actually, I'm jumping ahead here, but when I actually came out of 10 years later, I actually had to write a contract to myself on a piece of paper that stated my name. It was an official contract, and it stated exactly what I wanted to do by a certain date, and exactly what I wanted to achieve. It was like a really extensive, like, goal setting contract. And I read it out every morning and every night. And I sort of used to read it every morning, every night. And then I went, right, read it in the mirror.
yeah.
Because I was that first in it, I kind of knew it off heart anyway. I said, read it in the mirror. And the first time I read it in the mirror, I looked at myself and I went, what a dick you are. What an idiot.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you think you've got this 1,000-person audience critiquing you,
Right.
which is obviously not there. And I said to myself, hold on a second. I thought, I'm not doing that again. I thought, hold on a second. If you can't tell yourself what you want to achieve, how do you expect to ever achieve it? And it wasn't until I just kept on pushing through that short discomfort, again, the short-term discomfort, because I knew the goal was the long-term gain. And if I hadn't pushed through that, I would have, that self-doubt would have not have given me the motivation to keep on going.
Yeah.
And really pursue my business. I know it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's incredible.
Mm.
And so, pulling that back to like the very start of joining the military, that
Yeah.
that idea of promising yourself something, setting a goal and promising yourself, I'm gonna do this. that applies to young, because I get a lot of young viewers watching these videos, messaging me on Instagram. Hey, I'm 13, 14. I want to be a Royal Marine. What do I do? If you're watching this and you're that age, this also applies to you. Like
Mm.
this is something that is across the board. And I know when I was a kid, I had one goal and it was just get a green beret. But if I broke it down step by step, I probably would have gone into training way fitter, way more determined, way more resilient, and just in a better place in general, you know?
100%, 100%, mate. I tell you what, when people, I used to say that to people like young people that, oh, I want to join the Royal Marines. What should I do? And I'm always like, oh yeah, get fit and get a pack on your back and get into the hills, get your boots on. Which I don't, I still agree you have to do, but it's my priority of what I recommend people to do now. I mean, for me, if you want to join the Royal Marines, you should be that shouldn't be. I shouldn't have to tell people to do that.
Mm.
But for me, what I say now is, first of all, get used to being cold. Start taking cold showers, because
Mm-hmm.
when you can operate in the cold, you can, it changes everything. If you can't operate in the cold, you're going to have problems.
Yep.
And for me, up until I joined the Royal Marines, I'd had hot showers all my life, as you would. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But now looking back, to learning to actually operate in the cold and not allow that to incapacitate you is one thing. But actually learning that mental strength and robustness and belief in yourself, God, I wasn't prepared. Everyone thinks I'm going to grizz it. I'm an absolute legend down at the gym. I'm going to smash this. And then you realize when you get into the Royal Marines, you think, God, what all that training I did before I got here was so pointless. There's so,
Yeah.
there's so much you can do more on your mental robustness than there is, time spent doing that is seldom wasted.
Yeah. And you see a lot of these, what we call in the core, fizz ninjas, do
Yeah,
so well at the start of training, but then when the mental side starts to kick in, they drop like flies.
yeah,
They drop
yeah,
like crazy. And it's a case of really learning how to train that like a muscle, and then doing it early on, doing it early on enough. The same, like if you're doing your first press up today, your first press up that is the start of this little program that you've set to yourself, you should also be doing your first contract with yourself and being like,
yeah,
okay, I'm gonna have a cold shower. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. This is gonna improve, my resilience. This is gonna improve my pull-ups. And it should be added in with the rest of that training, and shouldn't be overlooked by any means. Especially if you're watching this and you're serious, like you
yeah.
genuinely serious, it should not be overlooked at all.
No, 100. And I tell you what, as well on that. I mean, I've just come back from filming SAS Who Dares Wins in Australia, and a lot of people will know me because I like doing the stunts. I much prefer doing the stunts than I do all the gobbing off. And I just believe actions speak louder than words. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's another story. But a lot of sort of the stuff under the ice and things like that. I prepare for that before I even do it. Like this one was, an ice dip, so we had to break the ice and we got them to go and do that. I did the demo.
Mm.
But for weeks before that, in the hotel isolation, every day, I was getting in a freezing cold shower. And I didn't want to get in that freezing cold shower. But as soon as my mind started saying, no, have a nice hot one, it'd be a lot more comfortable. I just thought my vision was about the goal, and I knew that by doing that process, following that process, I would make it easier for myself on the day. And that's
Yeah.
the one thing that got me into the cold shower and switched it on every day. And and that's why anything you do has to be linked to a goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's the goal that pulls you through it. I always say to people, if you don't have a goal, you get lost in the journey. You get lost on the journey, and you become a victim of your circumstances because you've got nothing bigger pulling you through.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's why, when let me give you an example. Like I always use the cold because the cold it absolutely changes people. I find it quite funny now. But if I was stood, well, I'm probably not. You're the worst person to actually ask this question to, Luke. But the normal person, you go down by a freezing cold lake, and it's the middle of winter. The ice is just about to form. And me and you are in our warm coats, and I just say to you, "Go on, jump in there, mate."
Yeah.
What
I
are you
mean, well,
going to say?
I would, knowing me, because I'm daft. But luckily, again, that's from the Royal Marines, so you know that.
Yeah. Generally, people will say no.
No, yeah, yeah. If I said that to my
Words
wife,
to
she'd be
that
like,
effect.
no, yeah.
Right, now let's imagine that same scenario where I've got your loved ones or loved one, the person you love the most in this world, and I throw them in the middle of that lake and they're drowning.
Yeah.
Do you give a shit about how cold it is?
Nah, you wouldn't, would you? You wouldn't.
No. But the thing is, because your goal overwhelms your circumstances, your goal is to save that person.
Right.
So it overwhelms that circumstance of being cold. So it's always so important, and to push and again for young viewers or young listeners, it's so important to have a goal. You even doesn't matter how old you are, we should be goal driven on a specific, on a chosen goal. Now, the reason I say a chosen goal is because everyone thinks there's some people that have goals and some people that don't have goals. Let me tell you now, every person in this world, whether they like it or not, has a goal. Your subconscious mind is a goal striving, goal getting machine that will stop at nothing until it gets what your dominant thoughts focus on.
Mm-hmm.
So if your mind is all about, your mental language, the voices that are going on internally are all negative, it's not hocus pocus. You will be driven towards the messaging that's going on in your head. 70,000 thoughts go around our head a day on average. 70,000. Now, a lot of those, just because of the way we're wired, again, are negative messaging. Now, if we don't have a chosen goal, we're going to end up with something that we don't like.
Yeah.
So that's why I say, regardless of whether, there's two people in life, there's people that choose a goal and there's people that don't choose a goal. People that don't choose a goal end up getting a life that that pretty much makes them feel unfulfilled and depressed.
Yeah. 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 Amen to that. I totally agree with that. Totally agree with it. When it comes to this mindset of goal setting and achieving the small goals, especially prior to knowing that you're going to do something, when it comes to SAS Who Dares Wins, do you get a lot of, whether it be the celebrity one or the non-celebrity one, do you get a lot of people who do set goals and then you notice them by a long shot, or is it mostly people who just go in with no idea what they're going to do and they just kind of go by and just, go with the flow?
I think to be honest, I mean, no, I think a lot of them go in there with a goal, to be there at the end, but they go in there with the wrong, um, there's one thing having a goal, but you must also know the path to get to the goal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You must, and the thing is, the people that come on that, they think they all come as individuals because they've not really been in the military before. They don't understand that lone survivors don't work. You know what I mean? It's people that stand there and want to be the alpha male or whatever, and they want to be they don't care about anyone else. I'm going to thrash everyone else. They get there and they're in such a total shock, and they realize that the more they individualize themselves while they're on the course, the less chance they've got of, they just fail. So they come there thinking, well, how am I supposed to win? There's a load of confusion. How am I supposed to win if I'm meant to help this other guy?
Yeah.
Surely I'm not meant to help other people, and I'm supposed to look like, and I think that is a bit of a shock for them. They come along thinking, because they expect by doing well on SAS, and it's the same as like going for SAS selection for real. You think that by being at the front, that's the way to pass, and it's not.
Right.
There's a lot of people, and certainly on that course, it's not about the person that's at the front. It's not about the person that's the strongest. It's the person that's given 110% in every aspect, and that's teamwork. That is on your effort. That is, that comes to helping others. Everything. You've got to be selfless. You've got to be empathetic to everyone else. It's a lot more complex than people think. Being at the front, there's a lot of people on SAS selection for real that they're at the front of the pack all the way through, and they keep on pushing. First of all, they make themselves noticed, and secondly, they find at the end that they're just not a team player.
Yeah. You get told a lot to be the grey man. Be the grey man, but don't go too far into the distance, but
Yeah,
just always be like
100%.
behind the people that are always like, shining, so that you can take note and also just kind of and keep an eye with the direction that they're going, and also learn from their mistakes, because usually the people at the front make mistakes a lot, you know.
Yeah, but the thing is, the people in the pack make mistakes as well. But because there's a bigger group of them, you don't see the mistakes.
Exactly,
But you
exactly.
see, when you've got someone that's highlighting themselves at the front or the back, you see every move they make. And when they make a mistake, it's highlighted straight away.
Yeah.
But the clever people are exactly like you just said, Luke. They sit in the pack, they observe, they follow the lead, and they don't make themselves highly. When we're doing SAS selection, when we're doing SAS selection and for the show as well, very quickly you start to, because initially you are really transfixed by these people that want to stand out, they want to be at the front, this, that, and the other. And then you have to switch fire and start looking for those people in the pack,
Mm,
start looking for the dark horse in the pack,
yeah.
because they're the ones that come through at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally with you with that. You see it in all aspects, probably special forces, like you said, but you see it all the way down to Royal Marines training as well. The first
Yeah.
few weeks of training in Foundation, you see them lads who are really pushing themselves, being at the front. You see the people who are dropping off at the back, and if you're somewhere sweet in like I don't know, the second third, like that's the sweet
Yeah.
spot, where you're not far enough down for them to be in the bottom half, but you're not at the very top. That's like the sweet spot to be.
100%.
With that being said, have you seen anyone in these TV shows, the SS Who Dares Wins, and the Celebrity, and even the Australian one? Have you seen anyone who you think can pass either Royal Marines training or Special Forces training?
Yes, I mean, it's really hard to say, though, isn't it, mate? I mean, they have the attributes. That's always what we say. They have that, and that's both for the Royal Marines and for the for the Special Forces in general. Because you and I know how hunger, um, fatigue, sleep deprivation, that cocktail creates a different beast of person.
Mm.
And especially when it's over an extended period of time, you can't, people knowing that the end is 10 days or whatever, you can't really get um, get the gist of really how you get an idea that they've probably got potential, but you could not say that person would pass, because you and I know, it goes in stages. You can get someone that's really strong for the first 6 weeks,
Mm.
and then they die. And then some people then start to get stronger as the course goes on.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to define that. You can't. It's like when you see them on the TV show. You see the ones that look extremely fit, and you instantly make an assumption that, oh, they'll probably pass. But then you go, no, it doesn't work like that, because they've got to go through so much mental pressure.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, a big thing is when you join on the Special Forces, and we do this quite well on the show actually, is we as humans, again, from an early age, we get addicted to external validation for everything we do. And that probably starts when you're a kid, when you bring home a picture, it's straight on the fridge at home. Your mum shows it to everyone. Look how clever Luke is. He's brilliant, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then we all of us are victim of it. We then grow up all the way through life, and everything we do, we want a pat on the back.
Yeah.
Everything we do, we want that pat on the back to say you've done well. The way we dress, the way we perform at work, the way we perform in the gym, everything. On Instagram, the likes, you're feeding from the likes. You need to have those likes. You're absolutely addicted to the external gratification.
Yeah.
Now, when you go on Special Forces selection, for the first time in your life, that gets taken away. You know what I mean? There's nothing. You're front of the pack or whatever. You've done really well, and you're looking around for that person going, "Where's my pat on the back?"
Mm.
And what happens then, especially on selection, and you can probably relate to this as well, is the fact that your mind starts telling you you're probably not as good as you think you are.
Yeah.
And then it's that seed of doubt that starts eating away, and that's what fails people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things to get your head round.
Yeah.
It's no one's going to be there, and that relates to being in a war. You don't go and do it. You don't go and do an attack, and then someone comes up at the end and says, "Oh, you did really well. That was a lovely attack. You did absolutely amazing." There's no one there to tap you on the back. And sometimes you just got to keep on going, going, and going. And you
Yeah.
don't get to say when it stops or when it finishes. You can't just say, "Right, I'm tired now."
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
there is a reason they do that. The reason is because you don't get to decide when it finishes. You have to keep moving forward, and there's no one there to pat you on the back.
Yeah. And I think another thing is that when it comes to actually being on, out on the ground and stuff like that, is you're expected to do these things. So when you do
Mm,
something exceptional, you're expected to do it. Like
yeah,
there's no well done, that was amazing. It's like, yeah, you've done your job. You've
yeah,
done your job.
exactly.
Good job.
Yeah,
It's been around 45 minutes, so we'll slow it down there. But before we go,
yeah,
I wanna pick your brain on everything you've got coming up. So, book, TV show, and anything in between.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got a few things in the pipeline. I mean, when I was actually I left the service. I went out to Iraq as a contractor. I then went over to Southeast Asia, where I got involved with rescuing kids from child prostitution and slavery, which was the
Wow.
most humbling thing I'd ever done in my life. And really, I'm quite open and say this in my books that when I was in the when I was in the Royal Marines, I was searching for more, and that's why I went for special forces. I got into the special forces. I didn't find it there. There was just something that didn't, it didn't satisfy. There was something. It was something was missing. And now looking back, hindsight is a great thing, but it didn't win any wars. Now looking back, it's clear to me that I hadn't found my actual purpose.
Mm,
And when I went over to Thailand, I stumbled over something that was absolutely amazing, and that was helping people less fortunate than you for no, I self-funded the whole operation to rescue those kids, but it was the most amazing thing. And I think a lot of us in this world are losing the power and the ability to see the wealth in helping others.
yeah.
We're all fighting for the most Instagram followers. We're all fighting for, even at work in the same team, people are competing against each other. So anyway, that's cut a long story short. I That work actually ended abruptly, and I thought that was going to be me for the rest of my life. Actually, Luke, I thought I'd be rescuing kids for the rest of my life, and it ended abruptly, and it was horrible how it ended. But I always said back then that my work there isn't finished. So I have started that up again. It's very in the very early stages, but I want to be out there rescuing kids that are being sold into, that being trafficked. And this stuff is going on, on our home shores. It's going
Yeah.
on everywhere. So I really want to be a part of that, and changing the destiny of these poor kids' lives. So that's one thing. My new fiction is part of a 3-book series. So there will be more work straight after this one. I've got uh, with Foxy Me, we've just relaunching our app, which is the Battle Ready 360 app, which is mind, body, and fuel,
Okay.
meaning nutrition. And we've got a very exciting piece of equipment that is due to launch in about 3 weeks, which is home fitness kit that comes in what's known as a battle box.
Okay.
And you'll relate to this, mate. Back in the day in the military, where you get an old ammo liner, chucking a skipping rope, chucking some resistance bands.
Yeah.
So you always had fitness with you wherever you went. Well, it's a
Yeah.
simulation. I thought that might have one around here anyway. It's a simulation. It's like a recreation of that, and it's
Okay.
a box, and it's got all your resistance bands, ab roller, skipping rope, and that then follows along with me and Foxy on the app. We're also going to be running, it's very similar to Peloton, running live workouts from our studio, and hopefully before long we'll have global athletes that will be running those workouts all over the world. So you'll be able to log
Amazing.
on through your phone, log on to any, choose your athlete, and then be able to log on, which is amazing. So we've got that. We've got a clothing brand that's coming out next year. Myself and Foxy.
You're busy, mate. You're busy. I didn't expect all this.
I know, mate. I know. So this is why I keep getting told off. Um, Clothing brand next year, and then I've got Breakpoint, which is our company, so corporate training. We've just started something which is very, yeah, again, very humbling. and that is we've got a veteran transition program. So basically, we recruit veterans in, we put them through a 2-day mindset course, and then we pass them on to our partners at Orion Rail, who have then give them all their tickets to actually do contracts for jobs with Network Rail.
Wow.
So we're taking the lads from the front line and put them on the front line here as key workers. So
Wow.
more of that. So that's a really amazing project.
A lot of really inspirational stuff. And going back to the whole, the contract work, going out and finding these children that have been taken away. As a father,
Mm.
of someone recently, 2-year-old kid just about turned 2 and about to have another one. Um, it is something that really hits home when you hear them stories, and it's really just like gut wrenching. So thank you
Mm.
for doing that. That is truly amazing, and you are truly an inspiration. Um, Amazing stuff. You got so much stuff coming out, mate. This is amazing. Everyone who's watching this, I will leave links down below to your
Yeah.
books. I will leave links down below to all your information. So you know exactly where it is. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's all going to be down below, and I'll put it in the show notes for the podcast. Thank you, Ollie. I'd love to have you on again.
Mate, we will do, because we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah, we really have. It's been an absolute pleasure. So
Definitely,
thank
mate.
you. Yeah, thank you for everyone watching. I really appreciate you. And I will see you in the next video. Take it easy, everyone. Goodbye.